Welcome back, educator. This is Vicki Davis, and you're listening to Cool Cat Teacher Talk.
Ever wondered how remarkable teaching happens? Find out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis. Get insights from top educators, tech tips, and inspiration to elevate your teaching.
We are still talking about AI with all of our ISTE 2025, but we have a lot of new news today. First, we'll have Alice Keeler, known as the Queen of Spreadsheets. Yes, Google called her that. She gives us the lowdown on Google Gemini in Google Classroom, and we'll talk about the implementation concerns. This is a must listen to for Google Schools. Let's get to our news. Velvet Sundown has over 1 million plays on Spotify. Yes, this new group went viral with their 4 hunky Crosby, Stills, and Nash style sounding musicians. Only they aren't musicians at all. Everything was AI generated, the photos, everything. And Suno was used to AI create the music. Now, I've talked about Suno before on the show, and there's a lot of great classroom uses, but this was the problem. It wasn't disclosed. Over 1 million views on Spotify. Oh, that's some real money. The music is actually pretty doggone good. I took a listen to it today. So the outcry is real. This is going to be an opening conversation in my class as we start back to school. I'm going to play some of their music that I'll link in the show notes and discuss this probably on day 2. Big conversation. However, it's a big stark contrast to another group a lot of us who watch America's Got Talent would have heard of. They fell in love with a cowboy. Yeah, Terry Crews gave his golden buzzer to a group from near Atlanta, Boykins, those girls with their awesome song with just a really new vibe. Interestingly, when you look at their YouTube channel, they actually have videos from when they were little girls at a mall in Atlanta performing. I think we're going to start seeing that people want the journey to be real and they want to interact with real people. Those guys, they had 1.5 million views in the less than 24 hours that they have been posted on YouTube as I'm recording this show. So OpenAI made some big announcements today on the 17th as we're recording this show. They've announced ChatGPT Agent. Now, when you use ChatGPT, it will proactively choose from a, quote, toolbox of agentic skills. They claim you can say, help me plan a trip to Tokyo, find 3 hotels under $150 a night, and put them into a table with pros and cons. You can even make dinner reservations, but it's supposed to ask for approval before doing that. One tip that AI may not give you if you do go to Tokyo, my son went and he played with otters, and he said it was awesome. Now, if you do dinner reservations, it's supposed to ask for approval before sending that reservation request or connecting to your Gmail. ChatGPT claims it can handle online tasks for you, including navigating websites. Go through this website and find such and such for me. This is what they're talking about when they say that AI agents are going to be going through your website. Now is a good time to optimize your website for AI agents. And yes, there's a way to do that. You kind of actually change some of the headings into questions. I could do a whole other show on that. It can manage calendars, it can run code, and even build slideshows. Now, I've been using Gamma to build my slideshows, but this looks promising. Rollout is only for subscribers of ChatGPT Pro, Plus, or Team. So for users, you are out of luck right now. You can activate the agent by choosing agent mode from the ChatGPT tool menu. Personally, I've unconnected all AI from my Gmail except for Superhuman because of the high blackmail rates in safety tests. I've talked about that on prior shows, but I'm not sure I can trust AI with my email yet. But speaking of Superhuman, my favorite AI email tool, Grammarly bought Superhuman. And Grammarly actually got a $1 billion funding round. So Grammarly is here to stay. Of course, all these AI features in ChatGPT are built into Grammarly. I subscribe to both Grammarly and Superhuman, so we'll see what happens. For me, that takes those 500 to 600 emails I get a day. It cuts them down to real people. Sometimes the real people do get filtered out. I'm sorry about that. Just send me an email again at Vicki@coolcatteacher.com, and I will try to get to those. I do like to read emails from all the teachers. But if you're a company and you just want a free promo or something, don't do that. I will say I did a demo of Nearpod's new AI features for building lesson plans, and I actually find those really superior to a lot of the new tools out there. If you haven't heard, quizzes, is it 1Z or 2 and where? I think I misspell it all the time. It's now Wayground. You've also got 30 plus AI tools built into Google Classroom, but all of them may not be as great as you might think, as today's guest, Alice Keeler, will say in our first interview. Now, Claude from Anthropic has announced some new partnerships with the University of San Francisco School of Law, which is becoming what they say is the first fully AI integrated law school in partnership with Claude for Education. Claude for Education also has partnerships with Panopto and Wiley and is now Canvas LTI integrated. They're also launching Claude Builder Clubs for schools. I covered this last week, but I want to remind schools one more time to join the Instagram School Partnership Program so you can better report bullying, fight pages, all those things that happen on Instagram to disrupt. And I do hope that this will signal all the other social media platforms out there they need to partner with schools. Now, this has to be done with a school official account. So get your social media person to take that school official account and apply. There is going to be a delay to get approved. The sooner you get it in, the sooner you can start using those features. Now, do you know a teacher making a difference? The $1 million Global Teacher Prize from the Varkey Foundation is open now. To nominate your favorite teacher, go to varkeyfoundation.awardsplatform.com. This is a fantastic $1 million Teacher Prize program, and I'm so proud to have judged this from the first year of the awards. They have been going 10 years now. That's hard to believe. But the first year and the second year, I was there in Dubai when they announced it. It was just such a great experience. I recommend you nominate someone. And yes, this is open to any teacher in the world. A June Pew Research study found that 25% of U.S. adults aged 50 through 64 and 10% of those 65 or older have used ChatGPT. However, it seems that smart home devices and the AI that's built into those are being used more by older Americans. Michigan researchers found that 51% of Americans aged 50 or older used voice assistants in the past year. Things like smart locks, cameras, and alarm systems were used by about 35% of that age group. I know I recently upgraded to a special beta test of Alexa for Amazon. Hopefully it won't go off as I'm recording this, but voice assistants are coming to everything, so expect that. And if you think about who has the income in our society, becoming voice optimized for everything on the web is going to become increasingly important. So I've talked about AI optimized websites for agents. You're also going to have to be optimized for AI voice agents, and that's going to happen more and more. Now, here's some random knowledge that you might like. What was the most popular new emoji of 2025? Face with bags under eyes. If you can see me, I've been a little under the weather, and that might be me. But I haven't used that emoji yet, and I guess I might join everybody else. But it tells me that a lot of us teachers are probably using emojis. Face with bags under eyes. When they roll out Emoji 17.0 later this year, you'll get an orca, a Sasquatch, and a cartoonish fight cloud. What fun. And in the last tidbit for your fundraising, the recent tax bill that just passed here in the U.S., you'll be able to take $1,000 for single individuals, $1,000 for married filing jointly for charitable donations in cash. So hopefully you can use that for fundraising. Sadly, our educator expense deduction is still just $300 a teacher here in the U.S., although surveys show we spend an average of $895 a year on our classrooms. I know I'll plunk down a chunk of change on snacks and other things that'll far go over that amount. But sadly, you need to be careful about who you, quote, adopt on social media to help give money to classrooms. I have seen reports of scammers that are creating scam teacher accounts and asking for donations to pay for Amazon wish lists. So use a reputable organization to adopt teachers, or if your child is in a school, why don't you ask that teacher what they need? A lot of times teachers cannot ask for things. So if you know a teacher and you want to help, ask for what they need. I know that I was running out of tissue boxes at the end of the year, and somebody asked, and I said, "Hey, I've got a lot of kids who have a cold. Can we get some tissue boxes?" That was just so nice. So I think it's better to really try to help your local schools if you can. So now that we've gotten through some of our news, we're going to head over to Alice Keeler for everything Google and AI.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
I am so excited today to be talking with my friend Alice Keeler. She is the queen of spreadsheets, and yes, Google gave her that name. And she has her cat on camera. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, well, I am the Cool Cat Teacher, so there you go. She is a mom of 5. Author of 8 books. She blogs at alicekeeler.com. She has an AI teacher toolbox that you definitely want to check out at educator.aiassistant.com. It not only creates lesson plans, quizzes, rubrics, but it collects no data. All of her data collection free add-ons are at alicekeeler.com/coded by Alice. You sent me a text the other day that said how many?
37.
37 add-ons. And
It just feels like so many. I can't keep track. I'm like, is it really that many?
yeah, and you start as a math teacher.
I taught myself to code. And now with vibe coding, Mike Dolphin, after our panel at ISTE, he's like, have you heard of vibe coding? I'm killing it with the vibe coding. Vibe coding would be when you use AI to code, right? So I go to Google Gemini or ChatGPT, although I've been using more Google Gemini these days. This is what I want. I code Google Workspace, right? So Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. So that's pretty much what I'm sticking to. It also does a pretty great job at making my HTML sidebars. So I describe in detail, and I know how to code. So my prompts are pretty good. This is what I want the add-on to do. Honestly, Vicki, the other day, it was really disappointing because it worked the first time. No edits. I'm like, how boring is that? But it also is like, how quickly can I get out new features and improve the functionality and things that I kind of know about, but I don't know? I can actually incorporate those things really quickly into my add-ons and into my code. So vibe coding is coding with AI.
So, Alice, give us an example of one of your favorite add-ons. What are these things that you're creating?
I'll give you my most recent official one, and I'll tell you about my unofficial ones that I have been doing. So my most recent official one is it took me 2 days to create this AI teacher toolkit. So what I wanted to do is to have something that collects no data. I feel very squishy about all of these products that have seen so popped up over the last year. What's your history? What's your history with student data? Like, we literally can't know because they just haven't been in the game long enough. There's some rumors about some companies just signing whatever the schools give them. Are they? I mean, it's easy to sign something, but what are they really doing with your data? So I like to have things working within the tools that I already use. So that's my favorite first place to go. I want my toolbox to be small. I don't want to sign up for 10,000 different products. So what can I do with Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Forms, stay in the Google ecosystem if you're a Google user? And then if you're a Microsoft user, love Microsoft. We're not talking about that because I don't code those. Other people do. So this is the ecosystem you're in. It's in your own Google Drive. You should keep your data with yourself. So what I coded was the ability it's an add-on for Google Sheets that will allow you to create lesson plans, quizzes, rubrics, respond to an angry parent, lesson plan simulator that turns your lesson plan into a D&D adventure, like literally anything you want. Does any of those things and more because I have a feature that allows you to describe what tool you want, create the prompt for you, and add it into your toolbox.
Wow.
It's an add-on for Google Sheets that is similar to a lot of these tools that make AI lesson plans. And they use the power of Google Gemini. So what I was able to do is take the Google Gemini API and connect it up with your Google Sheets. So it's your Google Sheets, which means it's also really easy to share. All the outputs are doc sheets, slides, classroom tasks, calendar, all the things. It all exports out to a Google product, which is where? In your Google Drive. I have literally zero access to anything. The only data that I have is I can see how many executions there were. That's it. That's all I got.
So let me ask you this whole respond to an angry parent, because there are people who were like, hey, let's throw that in ChatGPT. And I'm like, no, because of the privacy, right? So what's happening on the Gemini side? If I have that email for an angry parent, I'm using this Alice Keeler add-on, you don't collect any of that data, but does Gemini keep it?
I mean, kind of the same problem, right? What
Yeah.
they claim and what they do don't always match. That's how, scandals erupt. So I'm not going to put my kid's livelihood on the line for this, but in theory, no, it's not collected. It does pass to their servers and come back, right? So you have your
Okay.
prompt. So what my toolkit does, it has the prompt for you, and it sends the prompt and any information that you have. So the email, you can choose to include the PII or not. So you could just put a placeholder, dear parent, dear, whoever. So you don't have to put that in. And it's going to pass it through the API to Gemini and bring it back. It's not sitting anywhere. It doesn't live on a server as far as I know.
Of course, PII is personally identifiable information.
As far as I know, no, it's not stored anywhere. I certainly don't have access to it. I wouldn't have any way of doing that. I still think it's always a good idea when you're doing AI prompting to just omit sensitive information, just as a general rule of thumb. In my particular case, everything is sitting in your Google Drive, in your sheet. If it's in your Google Drive, we have a lot of PII in our student drive, right? Like
We do.
all the student work, rosters, everything. Google Classroom has that PII. So I'm not sure exactly what extra things Google would have from using the API here. I know their slogan is your data is your data. And Microsoft's the same, right? If you have paid versions, if you're using free Gmail, guys, you are the product. If you're using free tools, you are the product. So ChatGPT, all of them, if you're not using a paid version, they are most likely using your data in some way. So for that reason alone, I think you should upgrade and use, if you're on Gmail, you can upgrade and use Google A1, which I keep wanting to say AI because that's all we say these days, but it's not an I, it is a one. So Google One is, you can upgrade your Gmail and then, or you can just have Google Workspace. So your Google Workspace, your day is your data. So of course, if you are a Google school, then you have Google Workspace. I know they've changed their name like 100 times. The current name for the next 5 minutes is Google Workspace. I was really adamant when they changed to G Suite that I'm going to keep using hashtag Google EDU because I'm like, this isn't going to last.
Now that vibe coding exists and people can write their own extensions, which is cool. It's really cool. But what you're saying is there are bad actors that can write extensions that can take like information. So how do we determine which extensions that we really want to trust? And do we just write them ourselves?
That is an amazing question. I think you should write them ourselves. I mean, it took me 2 days to write this teacher AI toolkit. Now, granted, I have a lot of background knowledge and things that help me to do this. I don't know that your average person with no knowledge could just pull this off tomorrow. But that's what's really exciting is that school districts can look at these tools and be like, we want that, but we want the privacy. They can literally have somebody with honestly very mediocre skills in coding, put one together, distribute it out to the whole school district. And you know it's safe because you made it internally and you publish it. And it's so easy to publish internally. So I work part-time for this company called Tiller. It's a personal finance company that it's an add-on for Google Sheets or Excel that syncs your bank transactions into your spreadsheet. And again, all private, right? It's all in your own documents. And so I wanted to be able to email myself a receipt and have it add to my spreadsheet of where I'm keeping track of my records, right? So I vibe coded that. It took me couple hours. And I have it working is that I just email myself and I took a photograph of like a Brahms receipt and my Costco receipt. And then I also have the PDF version because I wanted it to work in both. And I described how I wanted it to work into Gemini. And honestly, OCR, reading receipts and things, pictures, it's a little tricky. So I had to massage my prompt, but I did get it to work. And so when I email myself and I include the word Tiller, I know that I want to use that particular piece of information in my Tiller spreadsheet. So you can see how really specific this is. And then since I work for Tiller, I went and made a cloud project. It's Google Cloud. I go to Google Cloud and I make a cloud project and I link up the Gemini API into there. And then I can just install locally and it's instantly available to all the employees at Tiller. Now, you have to have permissions. Like probably as a teacher, you don't have the ability to make a cloud project at your school. So you're going to want to work with your IT department, either get them to do it because it's insanely simple to do that. We're in a really exciting time of more security because it's really doable. These companies can pop up overnight, like bing, 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 bing. There's like 5,000 AI tools out there.
Yeah.
Well, why can't you make that why can't your school district make that themselves and then share it with other school districts? Like feels to me like the democratization of ed tech right now. I'm really excited about it.
Well, this is the citizen programming we've been talking about for years. And one thing that I've been talking about with both my students and on this show is that the rise of citizen programming, which is basically vibe coding, means that by describing an app or a tool that you can create it, adds another layer of what IT departments will do, which is the approval of apps, programs, websites, all of these things to deploy them. Because if you can do that, you can have more safety and more security. But there are some IT departments who say, hey, we're not programmers, we're computer fixers.
Right.
That's got to change. Like, what should the IT department look like moving forward?
That's such a great question. I think that's true for every job. It's not just the IT department. What does the job of teachers look like moving forward now that we have this democratization of EdTech and all of the things? So I would hope that the IT department is always moving forward because technology moves fast. So what they were doing in the IT department 10 years ago, 15 years ago is obviously not the same today, right? How many of them were writing AI policies 10 years ago? None of them. And I hope they all are now. I hope they all are now. Getting them on board with the citizen coding, with the vibe coding, is that you have people from your community, your school district, contributing to solve your really unique problems. Anything you buy is pretty much off the shelf. It addresses your problems, but does it really solve what you need it to do?
Well, and people won't even read the privacy policy. You know what the privacy policy is if you write it yourself.
No, don't get me started on that one. There needs to be like some sort of a certification where all privacy policies are run through and rated and have a rating on their privacy policy that you could just be able to paste the link, whatever tool that you want to use, and it comes back with, hey, we read the latest version. Because even if you did read it, they constantly change it and then they sneak stuff in. So I hear CapCut has added some really sneaky things to their updated privacy policy and service and whatever, that maybe you don't want to do that.
I told my students I don't want them using CapCut anymore because of some of those policies that just don't protect kids.
There's so many shiny things out there. So I play games on my phone and, it shows ads, and almost every single ad is for some AI tool. And again, how long has this company been in business? How do I know how they handle data? Is there privacy policies or terms of use got some hidden sneaky things in there where they're capturing my likeness and my voice, and who knows what they're doing? And then there's just a lot of bad agents that want to install something on your computer that's stealing your passwords. And it's just silently in the background and you don't know that it's doing it. We really need to look past the shiny, oh my gosh, can I make a really viral video in 3 seconds? Okay, yeah, that sounds fun until you realize later, and maybe you never realize, that some malware has been put on your device. So I feel really squishy about that. So I love the idea that we as a community create our own tool. And it's more possible now than ever. Now, I'm just doing it with Google Workspace, but of course, you can vibe code in anything. You can vibe code Python and different things for whatever your applications are. So I would love to see more of that happening, is that we say, I noticed there's a big bus outside at ISTE. Who paid for that? You want to know who paid for that? Teachers, school districts. How much does your tool cost that you can afford a bus?
And if you're at ISTE, you know what we're talking about.
I'm not making any digs on this particular company. Good for them. I hear great things about their product. My point is, they're expensive, right? They've got 50 salespeople, not them in particular, but these different EdTech companies have a lot of salespeople. They are buying buses and hosting barbecues and have to do all of this song and dance to get sales, but ultimately that adds cost to the product. What could we do if we were to create vibe code and create these tools that we know that they're safe because we made them ourselves and worked on them internally? Some things you can't, like some of it's going to be too much. I don't know that I'm going to recreate Power School anytime soon, but there's a lot of things that we can look at and that's a cool feature. Could we build it internally? Could we band together with some other schools? I know like Fresno Unified and their Microsoft school, they're awesome. They do make their own Power School. They do make their own competitor for SAS systems. And so they do it all internally. It's gamified. But Fresno Unified is the 3rd largest school district, I think, in the state of California. So they have a lot of resources that maybe I'm in Wichita. Mays, which is right next to Wichita, middle of nowhere with 800 kids school district, have the capability to make and distribute these. They do, depending on what it is, right? But better yet, if we were to just, make a conglomerate, that we work together, that you are a consortium of schools that share a programmer.
Yeah, share a programmer. I mean, it's just kind of like take back your data. One thing at ISTE that perplexed me, I guess, a little bit is I'm a big one for using like the actual direct model. Like if I'm going to be using Gemini, I'm going to go straight to Gemini and use it. If I'm going to be using Claude, I'm going to actually get a little nerdy and probably go with Opus 4 and not Sonata 4. Or if I'm on ChatGPT, like which model am I using?
Ooh,
And
I
so
love that you
many of
said
these
that.
tools built on top of models, A, they don't tell you which model they're using. B, they don't tell you how they're using the data.
Yep.
And you're not transparent to like, where is this data going and who's using it? And then you've got the issue of, listen, you and I have known each other a long time and we lived through the Web 2 era. So many apps that we talked about daily in the Web 2 era, including one of them was Wikispaces, bought by Tez and then went away. Daily tools, big players, thinking they're going to be here forever.
Right.
And then they went away.
Right.
And that's going to happen again. And,
Sure.
I heard something interesting the other day that Sam Altman said, and this is what he said in one of his interviews. He said, my tool, which is ChatGPT is his tool, is at about the 6th grade level. I don't understand why companies can't just understand that it's at the 6th grade level, but the new models are going to be the higher levels. But what they're doing is they're building whole platforms to try to take my 6th grade level AI knowledge base and turn it into PhD level that are going to break when I release a new model that's on an 8th grade level or a 10th grade level. Why can't they just learn to grow with the model and say, hey, this is a good 6th grade level model. I'm just going to let it be what it is and then let it grow. It just speaks to, you've got the AI industry over here, and then you've got educational technology, and educational technology is building these things on top. But as OpenAI or Gemini or whoever updates these apps, updates these models, it'll break. And then we start from scratch.
I don't know that I agree with that.
That it'll break or that it'll just not function as we're used to. Because the function can change.
When I'm coding and I have an AI wrapper, right? That's what Educator AI Assistant does. It's an AI wrapper for Google Gemini. Although, to your point, I would personally prefer everyone just go to Google Gemini directly, go to Copilot directly,
Really?
go to OpenAI, ChatGPT directly. The problem is when I have a prompt, some of my prompts are really lengthy and detailed.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll get into that in a second. So I agree with you. That is better. But when I connect it up, I put in my code a link that says model name and I put the model name. So it's really easy for me to update which model. So, first I was using 1.0 Flash and now we have 2.5 Pro. And so all I literally have to do is swap out, not even a line of code, is just a text string. I have to be actively supporting it, but I hope that you're using tools that are being actively supported anyway. So apart from having depreciated functions, my add-on template tab, I have 30-something million installs on that. I love template tab. So what that does is it takes your roster of students on the first sheet, and then you design your graphic organizer on the second sheet in Google Sheets. And then it'll replicate your graphic organizer for each student on your roster and put their name on the tab at the bottom. Because I love to collaborate. I love for all to be in the same one. So at some point, Google had changed the way that they handled folders and moving files and some of those things. And so they were depreciated. So I go in and I look at my code and some things are like lined out because they're not supported anymore. So in that case, I did have to update my code, but not because of AI per se, but just because that's how software works. They have new ways of doing it. They have new protocols. The Google Drive today is not the Google Drive of 20 years ago. Remember when we had new Google Drive? That was a thing.
Your point is really valid. Like this is helping me understand is that the value of is this being actively maintained and updated so that you can have access to the new models? I guess the model part that concerns me is that there was that I hate the word hallucinatory because I think it
hallucinates. You can use whatever word you want, but it lies. And I'm constantly like, you're a liar.
Yeah, exactly. The word hallucinate kind of like gets AI out of trouble-free card.
I hate when it says, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You're not a person. You're not a person.
I would rather it say my programming malfunctioned, or, they really try to make it sound so human. What do they say? They say, I'm thinking. No, you're not thinking, you're processing. You upload it and it doesn't say uploading, it says reading. They've intentionally used all this human language to try to make us think AI is smarter than it is. And it's just a program. It's algorithms.
It really gets my goat when it tries to act like it's a person interacting with me. I'm sorry I misunderstood. No, you just didn't follow the directions. You blatantly ignored my directions and did something completely off the rails. You're not a person.
I wish you could just say you're not a person 100 times. I think that people would probably tune out of the show if you did. But that's a message. Listen, I had a really meaningful conversation with someone from another country, but said that the most useful thing I said at ISTE last year, 2024, was in our super share that you were in last year. I had made the offhand comment about make sure your middle schoolers aren't developing relationships with AI. And it's a real problem. And my students are talking to me, and I had, set a little bitty example. And she said, well, I went back to my country and I work at the national level. And I talked to people and I said, hey, have you heard of middle schoolers developing relationships with AI? And everybody's like, oh, no. And she said, I went and talked to some of my teachers at my lead schools in my country and said, hey, are people, are middle schoolers developing relationships with AI? And they're like, no. And she said, listen, a month later, my phone started ringing off the hook. And they all said, when we looked into it, we found that our middle schoolers are developing relationships with AI. And as a country, we need to deal with this as a problem. And see, it's that language that gets us in trouble. When people say, well, teach AI to be a counselor. No, listen, I saw this kid in one of the places, and I'll probably insert him in this show, that was talking about bias in ChatGPT. And he took a resume of a kid, a transcript, and he just changed the name, okay, to come across as a male or come across, white or African American or whatever. And he said he ran it 300 something times. And he found that, most people would say that the white male would get the best recommendation of a community college. He said, actually, that was not true. That Black males were actually getting the best recommendations of community colleges. And he said, this was encouraging for me. And I said, hey, why is it encouraging? He says, because we can overcorrect for bias from previous times. And I said, overcorrect for bias? You're telling me it's biased and then somehow that's okay. He's like, no, but it's biased, in this particular way. So that's good. And I said, listen, bias, controlling the lives of people, that's not good. To control the lives of people because of bias.
Vicki, it's impossible to not be biased because it's not thinking. It is pattern recognition. You have to correct for the biases that you don't want, but you're obviously introducing new biases. It's literally impossible not to be biased because it's programming.
It's impossible not to be biased because we're human. I mean, bias is bias. When you have people saying from a podium, teach your students to go in and let ChatGPT pretend to be a guidance counselor.
I'm not even wild about it, having them chat with history figures.
I do not agree with that at all. So what's your opinion? Let's go there.
So many things, unless it's sticking to actual quotes from primary sources, right? This person said this, and the only thing that it could say back is things that he actually said. Then you're literally putting the words in the mouth of somebody based on patterns. And we just talked about how the AI makes stuff up. So now you're making somebody who believes this maybe say things that if they were to hear themselves as AI, if you were to hear yourself as AI, do you think you'd be like, yeah, I doubt it?
No, I actually tried to make a custom GPT talk like me. Okay. I programmed it with the max number of pages I could upload. It wasn't 1,000. It was probably 200 or 300 at the time. And I said, I only want direct quotes from me. Okay, so I'm basically trying to make a cool cat teacher bot, right? That can answer certain questions for teachers because I was going to try to do that.
That's fun.
And it was going off the rails all the time. And if I, as a living person, cannot make it talk like me, how dare we take a person who is dead and build a huge legacy and pretend like it's talking like them because it can't.
It's wrong. To put a avatar up and make it sound like, let's remember that our brains are not fully formed until we're like 26. What does this do to children who think they're having a conversation with a historical figure with their perception of that person their perception of history, accuracy. I don't care if you're emailing it to teachers. Let's say was a high school teacher, 100 students, 200 students, somewhere in there. And here's all the chats from all your students today. When did I have time to read that? Like, that's a great idea. Sure, thanks. Makes me feel safe. You're sending it to me so that if there's a problem, I can go back and look at the records. But the reality is it's not as safe as it sounds. And I would rather we just do things that are safe in the first place.
Well, the only time I have thought that it would be a good use would be, let's say, Abraham Lincoln. We've just read Team of Rivals, or we've just read a big, huge thing about Abraham Lincoln. And I like to play Spy the Lie in AI. Okay, let's go in. This bot claims to be talking for Abraham Lincoln, and let's identify places where it falls short and doesn't line up. And let's quote those and let's talk about those. And
what DOK level is that?
So DOK, for those of you who may not know, is depth of knowledge.
To make it a 4, I think they'd really have to cite a variety of different kind of sources. Like complex reasoning is DOK 4. It's not necessarily the number of sources or how the sources are. So I usually just say nothing is DOK 4 because it's probably not.
Okay.
But what I love about your activity is it's human beings talking to human beings. It's having conversation. I just feel like we need to have more kids talking in class and not to AI. But how do we make our assignments AI proof? You can't be looking everything up when you're having a conversation or a debate or doing a presentation, answering a Q&A. When you're analyzing and working together as a group, all of those things are amazing. I love that.
What if at the end you've done this huge term paper, say in your English class on Jane Eyre? Yeah, let's say that you can talk with the author and you've done all this research. Okay. And your job is to figure out where might this particular AI bot who's pretending to speak for this person go off. And you do have to quote multiple sources and you do have to look because it's like a culminating event. But see, here's the other thing that would be of value is that our responsibility to use AI, I talk to my students about this, is that we are actually training AI. It is our responsibility when what do most people do when AI messes up? They click off. They don't tell it, you messed up because of this reason. You did this wrong.
Yeah.
They don't confront it. They don't say, you need to tell your safety engineer that hallucinatory model of 4, okay, GPT-4, that just went off the rails and they had to completely remove it. I was working on some goal setting and it spontaneously pretended to pray for me. I was so offended. I really wrote this big, long thing, report this to your safety engineers. This is so offensive. We could even help train these bots by saying, hey, Abraham Lincoln wouldn't have said that because then he said this. And what kind of training is going on? Because we know that AI drifts. I mean, ChatGPT was better at math when it started, drifted. They actually documented it drifted, and it drifts because we're not training it when it's right and wrong. And so I believe the exposure of a tool to beginners is what causes it to drift. When it's exposed to experts can correct it all day long, but beginners, they don't know what they don't know.
Especially when the free models, you are the product, they are using your data to train their models. And I'm honestly a little bit concerned because I do pay for ChatGPT and Gemini. And then when it does go off the rails and I do correct it, in theory, they're not collecting my data. Like I get really frustrated when I use Workspace versus Gmail Gemini, because in Gmail Gemini, I'm on the beta team. So I know they're reading my chat. I gave them permission for that. And so, but when I'm in my Workspace where I'm actually working, I'm doing things that I really would like it to be trained on, it only allows me to thumbs up, thumbs down. I can't send them the same kind of feedback within the system that I can in my beta. So one of the things you can do in Gemini, though, is every single chat, give them a thumbs down or a thumbs up. But if it's not outputting the right way, the only feedback they're really getting is 50-50. Get in that habit.
You can go back in there if you turn memory on and say, hey, don't do this or don't do that or whatever, or you've offended me. We're not seeing the back end of that. As we were talking pre-show, you were talking about something you'd been experimenting with lately. So let's talk about that.
So I love Gemini. I love Gemini in my Google Docs, my Google Sheets, my Google Slides, my Drive, to have it in the sidebar. I was using somebody else's Workspace account yesterday and I'm in a spreadsheet and there was no Gemini in the sidebar. And I'm like, I can't live my life like this. First word problems. I shared it with myself so that I could. And so when Google announced at ISTE that they now have Gemini in Google Classroom, I'm really excited about this. And I just want to use Google Workspace as much as I can, maximize it that I can before I start going outside. So I go in and they now have free for everybody is this AI toolbox, right? Here's a button, make a lesson plan and write me whatever. Zeroed in on the button that said engaging worksheet. First of all, that is an oxymoron. One of my most recent book is 50 Ways to Engage Students with Google Workspace. I know they got my number. No one called me. But anyway, whatever. Maybe they read my book. They certainly didn't. They should have uploaded it up into their training model because I clicked on the button for engaging worksheet and it was just math facts. Number 1, 6 times 7. Number 2, 3 times 4. Are you kidding me? First of all, that was not worth the water bottle that you just dumped on the floor to run AI. This is the worst use of AI. If you're going to use AI, use it to take education further. Make an engaging worksheet. What about the prompt? Uploaded research on student engagement, because that would be multimedia, things, real world examples. I have if you go to alicekeeler.com/engagement, I have a research article that lists out all these different ways to engage students. Wouldn't you know it, worksheets are not on the list? The audacity of Google to put the word engagement next to worksheet and then not pair it up with research and then not make it engaging and then to make it the worst use of AI possible. I'm pretty mad about it. I'm pretty mad about it because it breaks trust, right? You come in, look at all these magic buttons. Make me a lesson plan, make me a rubric, write a compelling prompt, which by the way, the compelling hook was pretty good. I did like that one. The whole thing's not garbage, but this engaging worksheet is garbage. Now, how many teachers push that button and use it when there should be a level of accountability to the people who made those? I understand we got to get this pushed out by ISTE. I get that. If you go into my tool, educator.aiassistant.com, which is basically the same thing, except you see the prompts and you can edit the prompts and you can share the prompts. So I have this huge list of prompts and most of them, to be honest with you, Vicki, are garbage. But I'm going to tell you that. It's right in my sidebar. These are all in beta. I just had to get something to put out there and I'm working on them. But that's not what you see with Google Classroom. It's an array of buttons that makes you feel like this is ready. It's not showtime ready. It's not. I know it will get better, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't call this out.
Well, I think that's a really important point is just because you like this particular tool or that particular tool doesn't mean that every single thing in that toolbox fits with what we know about great teaching.
Grading systems in Google Classroom suck. So I'll say that too. But there's other things I love about Google Classroom.
Well, and for a lot of us, it's just what we use. It is what we've been using.
Yeah.
But you're right. The use worksheets so little. If I do, they're more as a memory tool and filled out after the fact.
Jennifer Gonzalez has a really great article on the difference really between worksheets and then things that it just happens to be structured on a paper with a graphic organizer and it's scripted. So when we say the word worksheet, it has a broad shotgun effect of really just anything that you fill out. But the reality is when we say worksheet, what we're really meaning is DOK1, maybe some DOK2, paperwork, rote. I think we all know what we mean, even though you can elevate it. We need a different word that we consistently use to say that it's elevated beyond the level of worksheet, because worksheet is worksheet.
I create a paper document to help with cooperative learning, particularly when I want them off the computer.
So is that a worksheet? It's not.
So you think that's not a worksheet? Because see, you're teaching me something.
No, and then let me find this Jennifer Gonzalez article, The Cult of Pedagogy.
I got to meet her at ISTE for the first time. Jennifer Gonzalez is going to come on a future show. Just for those of you listening, while Alice Keeler is looking this up, we are talking to Alice Keeler, the queen of spreadsheets, but also does everything Google. So what'd you find?
All right, so it's titled Frickin' Packets, FRICKIN apostrophe packets, and it's cultofpedagogy.com/busy sheets. And so she goes through here, this article, and gives some nuances to the different kinds of worksheets that we might hand out.
I think I will go through that. In my early years, I've had to really work on making sure I come across respectful to all teachers because I respect teachers so greatly. And just because somebody teaches a little bit differently than me does not mean that they're not a great teacher and they don't have a great heart. I believe that 99.9% of teachers just have a great heart and want to do a great job. But when my kids were in school, every so often they would have a teacher I called a worksheet wonder. Is you wonder how somebody could have so many worksheets. And they would have these filing cabinets and they would use the same worksheets for 30 years. And it wasn't working. It wasn't like they had invented this great way to teach. This subject could be so much more.
Yeah.
This science class could be so much more. They're checking the boxes with these worksheets when it can be, science should be hands-on and you should be in the lab. And I've had some people say, oh, well, that's disrespectful, but it's just the fact.
Class and government class, all those things should be in the lab and hands-on and interactive and not just about competing with computers and AI. Talking for a long time about competing with Google, and now we're competing with ChatGPT. In all of this, it just keeps coming back to having great conversations and students doing thinking and doing something hands-on and making a difference in this world. I don't fill out paperwork anymore. I let ChatGPT fill it out for me. I volunteer at a homeless shelter, and they came to me with a handwritten paper of people who had signed up to volunteer and like, can you put this in a spreadsheet? I'm like, absolutely. Took a photo, uploaded it to ChatGPT, exported the table. 5 minutes, they had it. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to let ChatGPT be my secretary. They can fill all that stuff out for me.
Absolutely. Let AI do what it does well and let us humans focus on doing what we do well. And so good at honesty, which is truthfully, this is what we need. We don't need people that are all like, I'm in love with AI. And the people who are like, I hate everything AI, because the truth is more in the middle is where, we got to understand there's good uses, there's bad uses.
We should be critical users. That doesn't mean that you're being negative. I'm not talking about being negative. I'm talking about being a critical user. Who's got your data? How do you know this is true? Is this good for your mental health? Does this help us be better human beings? Like, why can't we ask these questions?
We should help humans flourish.
If we're not using this technology to make better human beings, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's right. Teaching is not an easy time right now.
That is the largest understatement ever said. It is incredibly hard. Yes, and all of the changes. We pushed everybody off the cliff, set their hair on fire over COVID, and then we piggybacked that with, oh, now you got to change everything you're doing with AI, and we're going to defund you and demonize you. Step back. Teachers need more time. You want a teacher to really care about your kid? What is in their schedule to give them time to treat you like a human being? Because you're like, go, go, go. Maybe you get a 50-minute, 1-hour plan period. That's not true for, honestly, a lot of elementary teachers. My husband had 22-minute lunch period last year. Like, how fast can you shove food in your face? And oh, by the way, as a math teacher, English teacher, can't you tutor some students during lunch, before school, after school? It's great. So when do I sit down and get to give them my personal reflections? I was in a coffee shop in New York recently with a college student. She goes to a really expensive private college. She said, my professor just used AI to respond to all of our papers. And she was really disappointed about this. She put effort and work into it. And she wasn't looking for, if you're really about learning, you're not looking for a grade. You're looking to improve, right? You're looking for somebody to say okay, look what you had. Good feedback should be actionable of what steps to take next. Not here's a grade, good job, you misspelled this, but really good feedback is really humanizing, right? I'm here to help you to get better, and it should feel like that. And I think a lot of times it doesn't. My pushback to her was I get it. If you turn in something, you want to feel like a real person cared about what you did. But at the same time, you also have hundreds of students, possibly high school teachers, and you do the math. 1 minute per student is hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible to give high quality feelings and good quality feedback on your work at mass. The system has to change. If we want to value people, then we have to let people have time to be people. That I have a couple of hours every day. As a high school teacher, I should have 3 hours a day just for giving personalized feedback.
If you're a writing teacher, no way you can not do that. Yeah. We've really created a unrealistic, unsustainable situation, and we're feeling the pain.
If I hear one more time, teachers should.
Well, I think the thing I don't like to hear is, when people say, take care of yourself, it's kind of like, I'm going to wear you out. I'm going to work you so hard. I remember one time somebody said that to me, and I had literally been at the school from 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. And we were getting ready to go home, and it was on the loudspeaker. Okay, now go home and take care of yourself. Well, I've been here since 6:30 this morning, and it's 8:30 at night. What do you mean take care of myself? What am I going to take care of myself? I'm going to go home and collapse and just hope I can wake up for my alarm in the morning. You got to have the bandwidth to take care of your students, take care of yourself. And the best schools, and there are so many great schools out there, you talk to the principals and they are saying, how can I take things off teachers' plates? They're working on, can I get parent volunteers for certain types of duties and certain types of activities? Can I train people that maybe aren't with the expertise of a teacher? Let them do other tasks. When you overburden a teacher with too much bus duty, how are they supposed to provide high quality feedback on essays?
I agree. One of the school districts I was working in, I didn't have extra duties as a teacher. If you did bus duty, if you did lunch duty, it was bad pay, but you got paid. So there are places that do it.
Yeah, and it's not an easy season, but if you look at it throughout history, the greatest leaders have always emerged in the hardest times. As difficult as times can be. I know that one time I was talking to a kid and he's like, "Oh, I'm living in the worst time in history." I said, "Oh, seriously?" I said, "Have you heard of the Vandals? Have you heard of the Dark Ages? Have you heard of it's a total lack of understanding of history. I'm not worried about my city being overrun and being attacked and having my house burned to the ground and being killed and my children taken out, So you have to have perspective and know that every season in history has its challenges. But I feel like at our age and stage, the leadership is on us. I mean, if you've been in teaching or education and you're over 30 and you have a little bit of experience, this narrative, this leadership is on us, and anybody can tear a brick wall down. Yeah. Anybody. But it takes somebody to build something.
Yeah.
And I would rather be part of building. And, when you talk about vibe coding, when you talk about good and bad uses, when you call out things that aren't good about AI, when we spy the lie in AI, when we have honest conversations about where we are in history and putting humans first, loving every kid in the classroom.
Why we teach. I mean, who gets in teaching for the money? I have a joke that I did.
Listen, if my husband wasn't an engineer, I couldn't afford to be a teacher.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, we do it because we want to make a difference. We want to make the world a better place. We want to engage with kids as human beings. And when the system doesn't allow us to do it, it burns us out.
Yeah, because we know what we want to be.
I feel like the first place to help kids is to support teachers that self-care is not lip service. Can they do their job effectively and be rested? My pastor this last Sunday, his whole sermon was on how rest is really biblical and important. As a teacher, I'm working on Sundays. I'm writing lesson plans. I'm grading all weekend at nights. Like you said, 6:30 to 8:30 is normal for me. When do we rest? I make the joke when I die, but that's not sustainable.
It's not. And you've got those 5 beautiful kids. And you're the only person on the planet that can be mama to those kids. And I've got my 3 beautiful kids and beautiful daughter-in-law and son-in-law. And I'm the only one that can be mom or mother-in-law to them. We are human beings before we're human doing. This hamster wheel of human doing, like you said, is not sustainable. So Alice Keeler at alicekeeler.com, that's ALICE, Keeler, KEELER.com. Until we know each other. We've met all over the place. I love the refreshing honesty, and I just hope that you keep using your voice for good, and I know that you will, and I hope you guys will connect with her. I'll tell you what she's great at is helping people become massively efficient with Google Workspace. So if your school is Google Workspace, you should reach out to Alice. She can help you just be a game changer. We're not going to get more people, so we got to get more efficient. And we got to streamline admin so that we can free up resources to have more people in the classroom. So thanks for coming on the show, Alice.
Thanks for having me.
Ever wondered how remarkable teaching happens? Find out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Welcome back to Cool Cat Teacher Talk. This is Vicki Davis, and all of the show notes can be found at coolcatteacher.com. So I think the tidbit that Alice shared about extensions for Chrome and how they use your data is actually really important. You can see why your IT department approves those extensions, but maybe you and your students can start writing them yourselves with the tips she shared. Now, as we transition to our next guest, if you haven't seen ISTE, International Society of Technology Educator, and yes, I'm posting all these episodes at coolcatteacher.com ISTE2025. So I'd now like to give you a little bit of encouragement. I'm reading a really great book called The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor. And he says that people work for 3 reasons. Number 1, it's a job. Number 2, it's a career. Or number 3, it's a calling. People who just treat it as a job, they just wait for the weekend. They phone it in, not so happy in their job. Number 2, when it's a career, you will invest in yourself. You will do a little bit of extra so that you can move ahead in that career. But still, the happiness may be lacking there. Or number 3, it's a calling. It's no surprise that people who feel called to do that job at that season in their life, remember, today's workers will change jobs 7 or 8 times. But in this moment, how can you look at your job more as a calling? So he says those people are much happier. And he gives some suggestions, some activities that I'm going to give you right now so you can kind of get your attitude and your mindset where it needs to be in this moment in your life. That if we will rewrite our job description into a calling description, he says to figure out how your current job tasks, particularly those you don't like, can be connected to your larger purpose. And that even the smallest tasks can have greater meaning when connected to your personal goals and values. The more we align our daily tasks with our personal vision, the more likely we are to see work as a calling. So ask yourself, what's the purpose of this task? What will it accomplish? And what does this result lead to? And keep going until you get a result that's meaningful to you. Now, I'll admit that over the years, one of my least favorite things has been lunch duty. But I've even been able to adjust my own attitude about that because lunch, you can kind of see who kids are sitting with. You can see who's sitting alone. And I've really connected that with my desire to reach every child. I was picked on for 5 years of my life. I was that kid who was alone. And I want to actually see kids. So by connecting lunch duty with that desire to see students and be there for kids who struggle, that helps even that part of my job feel far more important, and it is. Now, one CEO, Shawn Achor mentioned in the book, had his employees forget about their job title, and he asked them, quote, what would our customers call your job title if they described it by the impact you have on their lives? And I would say that some of the job titles I could give you as a teacher or even as a parent is hope giver, life changer, encourager, and helper. But sadly, if we don't see that as our calling, and we allow ourselves to be angry and upset, and we're going to talk about expectations on an upcoming show and the Pygmalion effect, which is really, really important. But if we don't work intentionally, we can be a hope stealer, a dream killer, and we can hurt the very students that we love and we want to help. I know it happens even unintentionally because I've done it, and it breaks my heart when a parent tells me or when a student says something, and I realize that I have to do some work there. But that's why we have to be intentional. We work to reach every child as best we can. And even if I can't reach every child, I know I'm reaching some. And I have my standard to reach every child, and I do my best. If I know I'm not, I'll try to find a teacher who is reaching that child. Sometimes I'll say, hey, well, what's your favorite class? Not mine. I'm not looking for a compliment here. What's your favorite class? Who's your favorite teacher? And I'll go to that. I'll say, hey, how do you really connect with this child? And then I'll find out. So remember your noble calling, teacher, and remember all our shows are posted over at coolcatteacher.com, where you can also subscribe to this show as a podcast, and you can subscribe to my shorter coffee break PD short commute kind of show called the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. This is Vicki Davis with Cool Cat Teacher Talk. See you later, educator.
Stay in the loop. Visit coolcatteacher.com. Follow at coolcatteacher everywhere you connect. See you later, educators.